How are Weston McKennie's piano skills? Because Ophelia is now very keen to show it off on social media.
Under my study, he could become a proper pianist.
Joining me now is an exceptionally talented musician. You will know him as one half of the Lumineers, that beloved band who were once described by a critic as gritty, determined, soaked in sweat and love and drive. Essentially the musical equivalent of Tyler Adams then. And my guest is a drummer, pianist, mandolinist, songwriter who says you can't do it all. He's also a proud booster of the American suspender industry. And he's also proper football, a recent Turin transplant who's gone full bore for the black and white of Juventus. Joining us from the middle of the Bright Side World Tour of the Lumineers, Mr. Jeremiah Fraites.
Hey Raj, how you doing? Nice to be here.
It's so lovely to see you from afar in Italy, but you're originally from Ramsey, New Jersey, just one town over from where Bergen County Buffon Matt Turner grew up. It is proper football territory, and that's where the Lumineers began. In its first iteration, early 2000s, teenage angst jamming on the top floor of your parents' house. Back then, what did you imagine was possible for you, Jeremiah?
I always imagined myself, you know what, I'm probably going to be 40 or 50 one day. I'm probably going to be living in my parents' basement, but I'll be happy doing what I love. Thankfully, things turned out a little bit better than that. I still have pinch me moments around the clock.
You'd already been composing and performing for almost 10 years before you had your first hit. The Ho Hey heard all around the world, and the song peaked at number 3 on the chart, and you were suddenly propelled from Denver open mic nights to global recognition in a matter of months. What was that whiplash like in that moment?
We were this overnight success, and a lot of people say an overnight success takes 10 years, and I think that that's kind of what happened. We had been writing and recording and gigging constantly nonstop in the New York City area. We were still in our parents' Subaru Outback or soccer mom van, whatever we were driving back then. But
rock and roll.
We performed at the Grammys, and I remember seeing Rihanna there. We ran into Sting. Me and the piano player, Stealth, we were running around. Elton John said to Stealth, "I love your band," something like that. And then I pushed Stealth out of the way, and I was like, there's no way. You know who we are, mate. Like, there's no way. And he said, "You're Jeremiah Fraites and the Lumineers. I love you, mate. Like, I love your music. We've been trying to work with you." And then I remember some of the press got a hold of it, and they were like, "Elton John slaps Jeremiah." A lot of it was fun. A lot of it was scary at times. I remember Tom Petty said something to the effect of like, your first album is essentially your first 10, 20 years of greatest hits.
Yes.
And in the second album, you have 2 years to write. So good luck.
I put it all into my first ever podcast, and episode 2 coming around the next week was a real problem for me. As we discussed, you grew up in Ramsey, New Jersey, once the home of Danny Aiello, and you did play football as a kid. Take us back to Jeremiah Fraites, the football days, centre midfield player of some repute.
I really loved it. I had the honor to actually do a traveling football team, which as an American was really cool. Just even leaving the state lines, that was like,
yeah,
that blew my mind.
You're going to get it, Delaware. You're going to get it.
And you had to try out for the team, and there was 3 rounds of tryouts, and I kept making it. And I remember one of my best mates, he didn't make it, and he was bawling his eyes out in the car, and I felt guilty that I made the team, but I was also secretly like super stoked that I made the team. My dream, believe it or not, before even probably touching a piano, before touching a drum set, was I wanted to become the greatest footballer in the world.
Now your football playing days are relegated to renting indoor soccer fields to play with your bandmates and your crew, or playing pickup games against the support acts that I believe can turn proper violent.
Yeah, so we played one game with a band, an Irish band named Soak. I recall a football hitting our piano player Stealth in the face, breaking his glasses, and I remember there was a little bit of bad blood on the field, but it was quickly resolved. And
have you still got it, Jeremiah Fraites?
I have the brain for it, and I can understand what I want to do. It's just that my body doesn't seem to do what my brain tells it to do anymore with the speed and with the lung capacity.
You've just described 90% of Everton's squad this season. And I hear that and I'm like, from a footballing perspective in the US, we are witnessing a very different era to the one you grew up in, one in which so many young Americans like Wes, Tyler Adams, Pulisic, Brendan Gio, they leave the nest, they're flocking in Europe. Seeing them now, do you think young Jeremiah would have kept going become a professional footballer. Do you ever think about that?
There is something happening pretty massive in the last even 5-7 years. I mean, even Ryan Reynolds' purchase of Wrexham. If I could be starting again 5, 6, 7 years old with a football at my feet at all times, I'd go for it, for sure.
But you said in an interview once, and I love this, that you stopped playing soccer in high school when you got shin splints, discovered the drums and marijuana. And I shudder to think of all the great American footballers that we've lost to percussion and cannabinoids.
I still loved football and appreciated it, but I wasn't avidly watching games. It's just a little bit complicated to watch from the States. So I did move to Turin, Italy about 2 years ago. And when I first started dating my wife, Francesca, who's from Torino, I sort of married into the Juventus team.
I love this notion that you didn't just marry your partner, but you married into her family's football team too. And as you say, you moved to Turin 2 years ago during the pandemic. You now go watch games with your father-in-law. You're a great son-in-law, Jeremiah Fraites. Can you describe the experience, that the cultural difference you found between going to watch Juve and going to watch, say, a game in the Meadowlands?
Still my favorite bit, probably before the game starts, is that the lights go off and then AC/DC's Thunderstruck blasts louder than any music I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's the coolest moment you could ever imagine. You have tens of thousands of people there to watch the game. And as the team's coming out, and it's just one of the coolest moments.
If only Angus Young knew what he was creating when he laid down that song. But you've described the act of going to Juventus. It's like going to the greatest gig, just the dopamine rush of the game.
Yeah, and afterwards, it's quite even hard to come down, I find myself up until midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, still like going to Juventus's Instagram, looking at stories, trying to go on Twitter to find a highlight of the goal before it gets flagged and, for violation of copyright. Whoever is in charge of taking down football highlight clips is the most talented organization ever.
You are on tour now. You are going across the United States, across the world. Is that the feeling that you are hoping your music will hit people in that same way?
If our band, Lumineers, is giving a tenth of this energy to our fans, then that's super cool and amazing and hard to put into words.
I cannot wait for the Lumineers cover of Thunderstruck, which is surely imminent and going to open up every single one of the remaining nights on your tour. The Juventus story, it is one that's taking some nosedive right now. The board have resigned, financial improprieties have racked the club, the team suffering a massive point deduction. And Jeremiah, I'm an Everton fan and I'm grappling with the doom of my club in a different but all too real way. How do you feel like impacting your city? Does it feel like the lungs of the city are being attacked?
The feeling right now in Torino feels like there's a lull, maybe, with regards to the team, and I feel like it's going to come back. Teams, they have their ups and downs. I think Juve will bounce back.
Your passion for football has led to it merging with your music. Tell us what happened, Jeremiah, at one of your Manchester shows.
Yeah, our booking agent, who is English, he said, "Hey guys, somebody here that wants to meet you. He's got a guitar. If you could sign, he's a footballer." Yeah, it's Wayne Rooney. And all of our minds were just absolutely stunned. What? And we got to hang out with him and have a few beers with him. And it was a crazy moment where it's just, and I've said this many times, that it's very easy. And a lot of times it's probably more fun to hang out with people that are not musicians because there's no sense of ego. This idea that you're going to take two famous musicians or two famous footballers like Messi and Ronaldo, and they're just going to be best mates, is probably so unlikely. So to me, anybody that's not a musician, it's just generally easier. A lot of times you're really interested about their lifestyle, vice versa. They have questions about our lifestyle.
I love your analogy that footballers and Messi and Ronaldo do not get on, but if you put Messi and Phoebe Bridgers together in a room, they just have so many incredible questions for each other's life. And Wayne Rooney is actually a real poet. He legit writes poetry. He's a very sweet, warm human being.
And you could tell that he was very sincere and honest in his love for our band and the music, and that was cool.
By the way, you'll know he's a real Lumineers fan when he gets Brightside tattooed as a tramp stamp. He loves Slow It Down, and I believe you played that for him in a bar.
Again, that was just a pretty surreal moment. I'm sure for him, also for us, probably for everybody in the room. It was a small gathering, and pretty cool.
And another footballing fan you have, Weston McKennie of Juve until this month. How did you find him?
Juventus is set to play a friendly against Real Madrid at the 90,000 capacity stadium in LA the night before. Their night off, Friday night, we're playing at the Staples Center, which is in Los Angeles. Four of them all came to the show, and we were all hanging out backstage. I was playing some stuff for the guys, and then Weston hopped on. And Weston's actually quite musical. He was playing something, and I quite literally stood behind him and took his hands, and I played Ophelia, our song, on the piano. It's just very fun and playful when you're meeting somebody that's not another musician.
Well done,
Yeah. Thank you.
How are Weston McKennie's piano skills? Because Ophelia is now very keen to show it off on social media.
Under my study, he could become a proper pianist. But it'll take some time and hard work. Some sweat and determination, possible blood, tears, but we'll get him there.
You could slap a hat at a jaunty angle on that man. Some suspenders. Could have really had a musical career. You can see that.
I agree.
Jeremiah, your football fandom thrills me in a way your music has thrilled millions. Catch the Lumineers on their tour over the next couple of months. It's a joy to be with you, to your family, to your father-in-law and your team.
Thank you, Raj. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Courage.